Right, everyone. Welcome to the Tutor Skills Workshop. I'm Sarah Antonelli. I'm the Program Assistant for the Labor and Literacy Library Program, and I work here at the Plainfield Public Library. Today, those joining will learn more about tutor skills versus instructor skills. So one-on-one tutoring versus instruction with small or large groups. This workshop will help you whether you want to start looking for volunteer tutors or to support different types of learning in your library, or if you want to brush up on tutoring skills yourself. During this workshop, we'll also cover the types of skills that make a good tutor. So before we start, a few important housekeeping points. First, you can either place your questions in chat, or since it's a small group, please feel free to unmute yourselves and just raise your questions. So this way it can be an interactive session. We'll aim to answer all questions during the session, and we'll also create a list of ongoing FAQs, which we are posting in Canvas. Please be sure, if you haven't already, to amend your name in the little box there by clicking on the 3 dots when you hover over that box, so that your name and library are visible to everybody, and it also helps us keep track of attendance. We are recording the session, and there'll also be repeat sessions of this particular workshop. All workshops, as we just mentioned, are posted in the calendar on the State Library website and also in Canvas with the registration links. And if you have not registered yet for the program, but I think you all have at this point, we will provide the link to the program registration form again in chat as well. I would now like to turn this over to Kristen. Kristen's an instructor and program coordinator for the Labor and Literacy Library program. Kristen?
Thank you, Sarah. So hi, I think we've all met at some point before, at least over Zoom. I'm going to guide you through today's workshop and on how to be a better tutor. And as Sarah said, we're a nice small group, which I like. And I'm going to be looking for a good amount of interaction from everybody. I'm going to want to hear your thoughts, your questions, your ideas. Personally, with small groups, I love to see all your faces. I also totally understand if you don't want to turn on your camera, but you're absolutely welcome to if, excuse me, if you would like to. And it just makes me feel a little bit more engaged with my nice little group of folks. So I'm going to go ahead and there we go. So before we talk about why we're all here and what we can expect out of today's workshop, I really want to know why you are here. Like, what is it that you're hoping to get out of today's workshop? So I'm going to ask you each to just share why you decided to attend the workshop. And there's no right answer to this one. It could be your library director said you should. It could be this one fit in my schedule. I wanted to see what it was about. You could be a tutor who's trying to brush up on skills. So, and I'm just going to go through my little audience view. So Maria, you showed up first. You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. My basic thing is I'm trying to help students, and sometimes I'm not sure if they are having either reading issues or so, like, you know, I know sometimes they get nervous when I stand next to them and help them, but I'm trying to figure out how I can help them better. Is it that they're just nervous, or are they having reading skills, or are they having, you know, is it a computer issue? Because I do find a lot of them, like the spelling and stuff. So I'm trying to figure out how best to direct them, you know, if they need extra help with something, where I can take them to.
Sounds good. Thank you. Luis?
I'm not going to be able, my library is small and my staff is small, and I'm not going to be able to do it with my staff. So I saw that it was volunteers were mentioned. So I'm hoping to get a sense of how I could use volunteers to do this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sounds good. Catherine, do you mind going next?
Hello. I am just interested. I saw that this was one of the topics, and I do a lot of digital literacy. So I just wanted to see what to learn from all this.
Okay, glad to have you here. And how about you, Diana?
So all my client interactions are one-on-one and versus, a classroom. So I just want to see if I can do better.
Sounds good. And I love hearing feedback as well. So especially Diana, you've done so much one-on-one. Please feel free to jump in and share some things that have worked for you, or feel free to question some suggestions I'm making. Like, we should just all talk and be a friendly little group. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out, or I'm going to tell you why I'm here. I am here to help you become a better tutor. I started building my tutor skills as a writing lab tutor in my high school so many years ago. So I've been doing tutoring in some way for a very long time. After college, I worked in a few different kinds of training positions, and a lot of the time I was that instructor standing up in front of a classroom. But I did do a good amount of one-on-one work, helping people understand and improve their digital literacy skills. And I feel like those are such different relationships, instructor versus tutor with their students. So I feel like we need to talk specifically about what it's like to be a tutor. And so I'm far from an expert, but I feel like I've gathered a good chunk of information that I have found to be useful for other tutors. So I want to share all of that with you to, again, help you become a better tutor and serve your patrons. First thing you need to know about being a tutor, you do not need to be an expert. You don't need to be an expert at tutoring, and you absolutely don't need to be an expert at the topic you're teaching. And we'll talk about that more a little bit later, but if you decide you're tutoring, or you decide you're going to start tutoring somebody, don't worry that you don't know every single thing about the topic. It's okay. We have ESL tutors in our library that only speak English, and they do a great job tutoring other students who came with other languages. What I want to start out with is creating a definition of a tutor. This workshop, again, is based on skills for tutors, not skills for teaching a workshop, not skills about making a presentation. So I think it's important that we have a common definition for what a tutor is, what a tutor does, what tutoring looks like. So I want us to start visually. I want you guys to just look at these two pictures, and from the two pictures, what do you see? What's the difference that you're really seeing between how I'm defining a tutor and an instructor? And feel free, again, you can unmute, you can stick answers in chat.
It's individual versus group.
Individual versus group. A tutor is tutoring one person. Sometimes it's two or three. An instructor is teaching in front of a group. Now, I've never taught a group. That's not true. I have taught a group that big, but only once. But it's definitely two different sized groups. What else do you see?
The
Anything?
tutor is seems to be okay. So the person who's being tutored is doing, and the tutor is by that person's side to help them navigate through whatever they're trying to accomplish.
Luis, is such a good point. As a tutor, you don't want to do things for your learners. You want them to learn how to do things. So that's very, very important. Anything else anybody's noticing?
I see a couple of people asleep in that large.
In that big class. I mean, it's hard to know. I might have been that person asleep in college, just saying. Go ahead, Maria, what were you going to say?
That person has their own laptop with them. They brought, I'm going to assume it's their own laptop that they brought with them to learn how to use that specifically versus they're doing presentations on the other one.
I love that. The tutor relationship has the learner learning specifically what they need, and the instructor is instructing a whole group of people on what the instructor believes they need or what the instructor has been asked to teach. So that's another great
And I,
difference.
one other thing, I'm sorry to keep
Mhm.
talking, but but I think it's also important is, I think Maria said the device, right? When we do workshops in the lab, we don't do it, but when you do it in the lab, the person has got to be using the device provided by the library.
Mhm.
This is where you want the person to bring in a device that they will be using to accomplish whatever they're trying to accomplish.
And that can be definitely way more helpful for your learner to be doing it on their own device. When you're teaching a workshop to even 5 or 6 people, if everybody has a different kind of device, go ahead, what were you shaking your head, Louise?
Yeah, no, that would be terrible.
It's impossible. It's so hard to manage. So that's a great point. And then my question that I want you to notice, which seems formal and which seems informal?
Informal would be the one-on-one.
Yeah, but informal or formal? I'm sorry, Maria.
Informal,
Yeah.
I would say it'd be a one-on-one.
Yeah, your relationship with your learner, with your student, tends to be a lot more informal. And even just look at the proximity. Being a tutor typically involves closeness. And I don't mean that as a physical closeness to your learner. And I'm also not going to say that instructors or teachers don't get close to their students, but a good tutor really does have a bit of a personal relationship with their students. You don't need to be BFFs. You don't need to like go follow them on social media or anything, but knowing about your student and who they are and what's going on in their life is really going to help enhance that learning relationship. And we're going to get into that in a bit more detail as well. So let's move on from the picture. I'm going to go over some quick definitions of tutor. So on my slide, the definitions of a tutor is defined as someone who teaches or guides, and again, it's usually individually, in a subject for a particular purpose, where an instructor is a professional whose occupation is teaching. In other, sorry, I just looked at your chat. Should you consider using a privacy screen? Honestly, so Louise put into chat.
Depends on the content of what's on the screen, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're teaching somebody how to write their resume, that's sort of personal stuff that maybe they don't want shared. Whereas if you're teaching somebody how to do typing skills or use a mouse or the basics of Word, it's not that big a deal and it doesn't need to be kept private.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Because we don't have them. Are they helpful? Are they hard to, use? Because I'm considering getting some for my library.
And Luis, you mean the ones that you just put right across?
Yeah, so you have to be close to see what's on the screen.
That's the difficulty with that, is that if the student is here.
Oh, you're on his side. Yeah.
And as soon as you get to the side of a privacy
That's
screen,
true. Yeah.
it's very difficult for for the tutor to even see what's going on there.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So, yep. Tutor is somebody who teaches or guides individually in a subject. An instructor is a professional whose occupation is teaching others in an academic area. And again, what I really want you to take away here is, as a tutor, you don't have to be a licensed teacher. You don't have to be an expert in a specific topic in order to guide your students' learning.
The one thing I have seen with the tutoring, because I do some one-on-one and I do some classes, is that when I do the one-on-one, they can only seem to handle so much information and then they're done. They can't do anything more. So I have to kind of pay attention to when they're like overloaded.
Maria, that is a great point. And that's not even covered in this presentation, but I might have to add it in because that is really crucial. When you're in a classroom setting, you can zone out a little bit. When you're working one-on-one, you are always engaged. And as a learner, you often need times to digest certain information. So Maria makes a really good point that you need to focus a bit on your learners to see if they've hit their point, if they're done. So thank you for sharing that. Over here on the screen now, I've got the definitions that I personally like for tutor and for instructor. A tutor works with individuals to meet them where they are and help them get where they need to go. So it's individualized instruction as well as usually one-on-one. Instructors can lead large or small groups through a predefined lesson plan, as often as part of a larger academic course or program. So when you're an instructor who's teaching, you have a lesson plan. When you're a tutor, you're really customizing what you're doing to the needs of your learner. So from these,
And Kristen, Kat has a good tip in here
Oh.
too.
when I do one-on-one and don't know, yes, what Kat said, I'm sorry, is it Catherine or Kat?
I usually go by Kat, so thank you for remembering that.
That's what I
I do.
thought.
I
And then I
remember
was
that.
like, I kept
Yeah.
wanting to say, I know that this is Kat, but okay. When you do one-on-one and don't know an answer, you model looking up information and troubleshooting. Yes, a great part, and I think this is a great part of both being an instructor and a tutor, is modeling how to learn something, how to get your answers. So I love that. I absolutely love that. From these definitions that we've got, I really want you to see that tutoring is individualized based on the needs of a learner. An instructor typically has a curriculum to follow. Are we all comfortable with how we're defining tutor? Do we feel like, yes, we've got this, we agree with this? I see most people nodding. Perfect, wonderful. So we're gonna move on. And what should we look for in a tutor? Luis, you were talking about the fact that you don't have a tutor in your library, but you might have volunteers that could possibly be a tutor. So this slide to me is almost like that job description or a good checklist of how you're going to start to figure out, oh, I see this in so-and-so, and maybe they could be a tutor. So before we go into that, what I want to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pop up a whiteboard. And I'm going to ask you all, once it loads. Oh no. I'm going to close it and try one more time. Although we're such a small group, we probably could just talk through it. I don't want to report it. Sorry. Try one more time. Only because I want to practice using whiteboards in Zoom, but we're not going to do it, so we won't worry about it. What we're going to go back to is I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, which will just take a moment. And then, and as you can see, just like every other sort of training, sometimes things go the way you need, sometimes not. So we're going to look at or talk about ideas or a list of things that we believe a good tutor should be, and then things that we might see in a tutor doesn't have to be. So I'd love to hear some thoughts on, first, what do you think are some of the skills or the personality traits of a good tutor?
Listening.
Good listening skills, absolutely.
Flexible.
Flexibility is huge, yep.
That's
A
so
lot
funny.
of
I was just about
patience.
to say that.
You were just about to say that, and I think Maria said a lot of patience. Absolutely, absolutely. What are some things that a tutor doesn't need to be, and people are always afraid that they need to be? This one's a little harder to come up with.
Well, you
Say
said
an expert.
Yeah.
Yep, they don't need to be an expert. Any other? All right, well, let's go ahead and we're going to look at my list and then we will take a look. So, whoop, come on. So, tutors, would you say you are? So, again, we're talking about this as your job description for tutors, maybe for Luis and for
Mhm.
the rest of you. Maybe you're not going to be the tutor, but you're trying to figure out somebody who can, or maybe you want to just know what you should focus on. Are you a good learner? A good tutor is a good learner. And I think it was Kat said earlier, and if you don't know something, show your student how to learn. So that's great. Are you interested in helping others? I mean, this is a really important skill for a tutor, or an important, will this list be available in Canvas? I don't have it separate, but I will pull this slide out and post it in Canvas.
Mhm.
Sarah, will you remind me? Are you interested in helping others? I mean, you could know every single thing about a topic, but unless you want to actually help somebody learn it, you're not going to be a good tutor. Are you a good communicator? Do you know how to speak somebody else's language and reword the things that you're trying to say to them if they don't understand it? And then also listen. And I forget who said, you also need to be a good listener so you can hear what they're saying to you, even if they're not using those words. So Maria can hear that her students are done, even if they haven't said, I can't pay attention anymore. She gets it. Are you organized and reliable? Those are huge. You need to be very organized to keep your tutoring sessions on track. You need to be reliable, empathetic, and enthusiastic. And we'll talk more about these in a little bit. Are you focused, but also fun? It's boring to sit and listen to somebody just talk about the topic all along. So when I teach stuff, especially what I consider boring stuff, I try to be amusing. I try to be a little goofy because that works in my personality. But I also try to keep everybody on track. And then the things a tutor does not have to be, excuse me, you don't have to be a teacher. You don't need those skills as long as you can help somebody learn. You don't need to be an academic expert. You don't even need to be a college graduate. I mean, I have a kid who didn't finish college, but could teach you so much. You don't have to be fluent in another language to be able to tutor folks in ESL, for example. You don't have to be trained in library or information science. I'm not a librarian. Did I whisper that too quietly? I'm not a librarian. I have a background in teaching digital literacy, and I love doing it in a library, but I don't have a library science background. And you don't need to be a former Jeopardy champion. You don't need to know everything. Kat hit it right on the head. I'm going to show you how to use Google. And I'm going to show you which things to trust in Google. And so that's how some of the skills for a good tutor. Luis, we will definitely post this in Canvas. There's actually, I'm looking at a worksheet, not a worksheet, a handout that we are posting in Canvas for you. I think I'm just going to add this into that and repost it for y'all because I think that'll be very helpful.
No, it's gives you a list of, if, you know, I could use that right away, looking
Right,
for.
Yep. Most definitely. I think one of the top priorities, if not the top, then definitely one of the top priorities or one of the top requirements of a tutor is trust. I'm curious what y'all think of that. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why do you think that is? Or why do you think I think it is? And it's okay if you don't have any ideas.
If
You
they're
know,
not comfortable with you, they won't come or they won't learn anything. They need to really be comfortable with
Mhm.
you.
if they're not comfortable, they won't come back. If they're not comfortable, and this one will take a while, Maria, but your example, if they're not comfortable because their reading skills are not where they need to be to work on the computer, well, it would be lovely if they could tell you. That's admitting something like that does take a lot of trust in the person, and it's very hard for some people to admit things like that. Kat, yes, it totally takes a lot of vulnerability to ask for help. So let's talk through this a little bit more. Why is trust so essential? Well, not everything about learning is fun or easy. And, sometimes for your students, it's not even immediately apparent why you need them to follow specific steps. But if you've built some trust with your learner, they're way more likely to follow you on the learning path that you're providing to them. The more a patient trusts that you have their best interests in mind, the more likely they're going to be to commit to continuous learning versus just one session, which is what we really want. We want to see our patrons be successful as they can. We're ready, we're willing, we're able to help them achieve those goals, but it does take them trusting us to get there. Trust is important. Maria just put into chat. They also don't have confidence when learning computers as an adult. That is so key. If you're tutoring somebody on learning computers and learning stuff, let's say that you've got a grandparent who wants to be able to email, or not even text, just email with one of their grandkids, which is something that I think kids are born at this point knowing how to do. It's so hard to ask for help in something that everybody should know how to do. I'm putting that in air quotes. So that's definitely important. You also need to be able to provide candid feedback to your learners. It's really important to make sure that your learners know where they are and have a good idea of where they are. And sometimes that feedback isn't positive. You need to tell them that they need to put more work in, or, things that they don't want to hear. But the better your relationship with your student, the easier it's going to be for them to hear, and then also to take in what it is you have to say. And then we also all know that working in the library, it's really important to keep information private. But your patrons don't necessarily know that. They don't even know that you're going to keep their personal or their identifiable information private, let alone anything that they opened up about and asked you to help them work on, or the challenges they shared with you. So starting to build that great trusting relationship is really going to help your entire relationship with your student. All right, so success starts with trust. So we need to figure out, how do we build trust with the patrons? Before we do that, though, what I want to ask you all is, I want you to think of a description of a typical patron that comes to the library for free tutoring, maybe on literacy or digital literacy, maybe job searching basics. And I know that we're going to totally overgeneralize here, but think about patrons that go to the library for education, to learn literacy, digital literacy skills. Ideas or thoughts on just some general background of what this individual might be like. I thought somebody muted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I missed the beginning of the question. Sorry.
So we're looking for a description of a typical patron that would come into the library to get support on literacy or digital literacy or job searching. So do you have any sort of general things that are typically true of that person?
But sometimes the person is like on the fence, I guess is a way of putting it. You know what I mean? They're like, they don't know what's going to happen. And
I need the help,
but not
I'm
commit.
so nervous. I don't know if I want to
Yeah.
come back. That first session is super important. Do you think that they have a really positive educational experience, or a really in-depth educational experience?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but usually somebody who has gone through a lot of education and has been in school and been able to learn how to be a learner in school often can figure out how to find the information that they're trying to get from us. So a lot of the folks who are coming in for tutoring didn't have the best education experience. So now they're coming in asking for help on something that a lot of them feel they should already know. And Kat, I'm going to get to your point in 1 second. A lot of them feel that they should already know. So they're so vulnerable. And Kat in chat put, I usually hear them do negative self-talk about their skills, even if they're better than they realize. So a lot of the folks who are coming to us have already made themselves vulnerable by walking in our door. They typically haven't had the greatest educational experience. And I know that's very specifically true in my library. It may be a little different in some of your libraries. And it's so hard to ask for help on basic skills, especially if you think that you should already have those skills. So it's really, really important to build a trusting relationship with your students, to take the time to understand where your patrons are coming from. We were just starting to understand where the learners are coming from. And I know we didn't come up with an exact picture, but it is a really good starting point for a lot of the folks who are going to come in for tutoring. Some of the other things you might want to understand about them is you might want to find out a bit more about their family life, their work life, their transportation to the library. Why do you think it's important to know more about all of those other things about their life? Not just, hey, I need to learn how to write a resume, but okay, what is your work experience and what's going on in your family? And, you know, it's going to take 3 sessions to get you through writing your resume and doing cover letters. So why do you want to know all of this personal type of information?
It helps them relax too, if you kind of give them a chance to open up to you, feel that you're actually listening to them, and you know, trying to guide them in a direction. And that, you know, they're having problems at home, say, okay, you know, I understand, or maybe we can help you through, work around your schedule or something like that.
Yes, both of those are so true. And Kat put also in chat, it shows you you care, that you can help and understand their motivation, understand their needs, understand the need to be flexible. If their only way into the library is a bus that comes once an hour, if they miss that bus because their job let them out late, okay, I get, you can just understand how you can be flexible and help them. It also helps you understand if you're going to give them an assignment to take home, well, how long can they really spend on a home assignment when they have 2 kids under 2 and they're trying to get them taken care of, but also work, but also, you know, so understanding who they are allows them to see that you care. It allows them to start to talk about what it is they're trying to accomplish. And then it also helps you understand maybe some of the barriers to showing up every time, on time, ready to work.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is I have, you know, a variety of different students who have different transportation needs, have different family backgrounds, you know, slightly older who, you know, don't interact with a lot of people. So, you know, I have the luxury of being a little bit flexible with my scheduling. So it's good to know what I'm running up against and what other commitments they have so that I can, you know, kind of find the best of both, the time for them and a time for me to meet and accomplish what they're trying to get done.
Yep. And the fact that you give them that you understand where they're coming from and you're flexible with them makes them trust you more. They see that you get who they are.
One thing that I have found is when they come in and they start talking to me and I do see that they're either having some financial issues, I do have some packets and handouts from either Office on Aging or like places where they can get food or places they can go and get help. And I will offer that to them, and that kind of helps them feel comfortable knowing that they can get help and, you know, come in and learn at the same time. So that has been a big plus for me helping others.
That's great, Maria. And that, I think, is something that would be great whether you're teaching a class, you're tutoring one-on-one. Our GED tutor does it a lot. Our ESL tutor does it a lot. We all sort of have the background knowledge of where are some other places people can get help on the other barriers in their life. So I think that's great. And if you're working, Louise, definitely, if you're working to figure out who can be my volunteer tutor, maybe you also want to provide them with some of that information. Some libraries have a social worker right in the library these days. And again, all kinds of great ways to work with individuals.
Can I add something too? Is talking to a person and finding out about him is a learning, can help the tutor learn, right? Oh, I've never been to this country, or how'd you get here? And that's just a learning experience for the tutors.
Absolutely. And that talks to this point that I just brought up, where you want to create a safe place to ask and answer questions. And then there's another phrase that I like a lot when we talk about working with our clients or patrons, is to meet them where they are. And meeting someone where they are means that you never know what that person has gone through, what it took to get out of bed that day. Like, it's a little bit like when somebody says you should walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. Even if you walk that mile, you still don't know all of their experiences. You still don't understand who they are and what has gotten them to this point where they need your help. And so I think it's really important that you let go of any sort of personal assumptions, any sort of biases. You want to try to check that when you think, oh, they shouldn't have done it this way, because one of the most interesting things my mom taught me about, like, checking your bias. My mom was a school teacher, and she was talking about how one of her brown students, when he was getting scolded, always looked down. And that was culturally, you don't look someone in the eye when you've misbehaved. You are supposed to take what they say. And to most teachers, it was, you should be looking at me when I speak to you. But there's a certain time where that's not appropriate based on how you were raised. So you have to not have any sort of expectations of behaviors that, or to try to understand the behaviors that they're bringing to you as their tutor. And of course, you want to encourage them to achieve their learning goals, to set goals to achieve them. I would also say you want to encourage them to update their learning goals. It helps you tailor your tutoring sessions to their needs. It helps you connect what you're teaching them to their actual goals. And knowing what your student wants to achieve, it's really going to help you be their cheerleader as they're taking the steps to get to achieving their goals. And you want to build a relationship. This one, I think, goes without saying. The more you build a relationship, the easier it is for them to keep coming back. I've heard, I think, every one of you say that at some point through this session already. Okay, so while being trustworthy is critical in tutoring, there's a bunch of other qualities that make a quality tutor. So I just want to look at that real quick. And as a good tutor, I want you to always think of your patron. So this is my acronym for some of the other skills that good tutors need. They need passion. They need to be able to advise. They need to stay tuned in. They need to be resilient, organized, and they should always have next steps. So we're going to start with the passion one. Sometimes, and I've said this before, sometimes the content that we're teaching, it's boring. There's stuff you need to know in life that just isn't so exciting. And your student is coming to you with a need to learn and improve. How can you help that? So if you're showing passion for a subject, no matter how dry, if you're showing passion about learning in and of itself, and you're showing passion for your learner, and by being passionate for your learner, you're empathetic to their situation. You are excited that they have a desire to learn and a desire to improve and grow. All of that passion is going to help you be a better tutor. And I am going to go through these sort of quick because we've done a lot of chatting through this session. As a tutor, you always want to advise and encourage your students' learning. And I think it may have been Luis or Maria, I can't remember which, said, don't do it for them. Yes, it would be super easy for me to write a resume for you. But then you haven't learned how to write a resume. It would be super easy for me to go into Word and type in the stuff you're telling me, but then you're not learning how to do those tasks for yourself. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help our students learn how to acquire skills and knowledge. If we just do it, they get superficial learning of seeing somebody do it. If you help them acquire those skills, it helps them be more successful moving forward. T stands for tuned in. And I did pick this picture because I dyed my hair purple again. I know it's hard to see on the Zoom. We talked earlier about that a tutor needs to support and guide the patrons. And really you can do this by being tuned into them, to their struggles, to their challenges. And I know I've talked about this a whole bunch of times, but tuning in to not only their learning struggles, their learning challenges, but sometimes into their personal struggles and challenges will help you understand what's causing barriers to learning. The tuning in is an essential way to ensure that your tutoring session remains on track, even if on track means you need to let them go home because they have other things that they're really stressed about and will reschedule this session. It's going to help you gain so much understanding of how your patrons are doing, how they're progressing. Because you got to remember, all adult learners, really all learners, but definitely adult learners are dealing with competing obligations. So I want to say that in addition to tuning in, you want to make sure you have effective communication with your learners, and your learners can have effective communication with you. So it's essential that you're communicating clearly and effectively during your session. And was that a question? Okay. You want to make sure you're being clear and effective in your session, and you can do that by checking in with your learners, and also by letting your learners know how they should reach out to you and let you know that they're struggling with their lesson, or that they're struggling with outside commitments, or even that they're just struggling getting to your sessions. You want to make sure that they can communicate that with you as well. Resilience. So that's our R in patron. I think a lot of us really learned from the pandemic about just how important and powerful it is to be resilient, to be adaptable, to be open to change, so that we can be flexible enough to work with our students where they are. And even if we leave out, previous challenges in education, just things like bad weather, work or family or school obligations or transportation issues or power or internet issues have definitely impacted some of my students. Any other number of stressors as well, they really can have an adverse impact on your tutoring session. So always being adaptable will help you meet your patrons' needs and goals. And I'm just going to check chat. Maria says, sometimes I'll follow up by email or phone. just to make sure they're okay. Do they need extra help? That's possibly on a personal level, but also in the tutoring session level. Hey, we talked about blah, blah, blah today. Do you have any questions? Or I assigned you this homework. Do you want me to talk to you about it a little bit, or are you fine doing it on your own? Those are huge. And you got to be organized. So the O in patron is organized, be prepared, be ready, know your topic, have all of the tools you need right at your fingertips, and be on time. When I run through my PowerPoint training sessions, the very first notes page on the very first slide lists all of the things that I need to be sure I have ready before the session starts. I thought I had that whiteboard ready, and for some reason it just didn't work, even though it worked here. But, you know, I was flexible and we just chatted instead. I could even pretend like I did that on purpose just to make my point about being flexible, but that wasn't true. But keep in mind, you guys, the more you're prepared before a session, the better the session is going to be, because now you're going to be focused on the session, not on, oh my gosh, I forgot to grab this or that. And just, you know, your patrons, they're taking time away from important things, from work, from school, from family, from friends, to be here in what can sometimes be an uncomfortable situation. So you want to make sure that you value their time, that you're ready and organized for every session you've got. And I'll tell you, the more that you're valuing them and their time, the more likely they're going to be able to value you and your time and your teaching. They're going to see that this is important to keep on task. And then next steps. So that's my N in patron. A good tutoring session is usually going to lead to more tutoring sessions. You're going to find out more about what your student needs. You may not know where they are going to end up. You may not know any needs or goals or challenges, but as you learn them, you can start putting them into your next steps. So a next step could be a learning task or a homework assignment that you want your student to complete between one session and the next. It could be a whole different topic that you want to start working on. What you just want to make sure you are is that you're clear, that you're communicating that with them, that you're talking with them about all the next steps and what your expectations of those are. As I watch the clock. So on this slide, we were going to just go over the letters of patron again, but I'm just going to go through it really quick so I can make sure I talk about all the other things. This is in the handout that you're going to get. We also have this slide of tips and pitfalls, and we talked to them a lot. We talked about them a lot throughout this session. The handout that will be posted in Canvas, and Sarah, you're welcome to share it right now the way it is, but it'll have this list of tips and pitfalls. So I'm not gonna go through them with you right now, but you will be able to read through those. And then a quick note about taking notes. It's really helpful for you to keep track of what's going on in your tutoring sessions. It's going to be helpful in terms of remembering things about your students, because eventually you're meeting a lot of people. It's going to be helpful to make sure you're guiding them towards their goal. So this list of notes, or this list of taking notes, some things that you might decide you're going to create for your notes. You want to make sure that they include who you're working with. When was this session? How long did it take? What did we cover? Was it covering everything we expected to or not? Is it getting someone to their current goal? Are there more steps to follow? Are there new goals? And then I think a couple of the most important ones, what went well and what could have gone better. It's important to remember what goes well in a tutoring session with this particular person, because, oh, let's keep doing it that way. And what didn't go well, you know, if such and such didn't work for this student, maybe having them read aloud didn't work, but if you read to them, they totally get it. keep track of all of those things so that you can work on it. And so I just keep looking at the clock. I'm so sorry, we're taking a while. If you're struggling though with figuring out why I'm not getting through to this student, or what can I do differently when I'm trying to get them to use the computer, reach out. You've got us over here at Plainfield. You've got your friends on Canvas in our message boards. We all have different experiences and are definitely going to be able to help out with what your students need. And then you also just want to keep track of the next steps for the patron. And then also, do you have any next steps that you need to do before your next session? So here are my next steps for you. You definitely need to, or should, review the handout that we're going to be sharing and posting in Canvas, although I have some updates to make for it or to it. I have a few training sessions that I suggest you attend if you want to build on what you're learning in this session. And I think the two that I would suggest the most are Cycle of Instruction, which talks about the best way to teach a skill, make sure the student got it, and decide if you need to reteach it differently or move on to the next. And there's a Cycle of Instruction on March 7th at 10 a.m. And then also creating lesson plans, and creating lesson plans becomes a bit more formal, but is really useful in tutoring sessions, just so that you've got an idea of where you're starting and where you want to go. Other next steps, if you haven't figured out, Luis, who's going to be tutoring and when they're going to be tutoring, that's some stuff that you might want to start working on. What topics do you think you're going to provide instruction on? And you don't have to limit yourself to the workshops with the information we're providing. You can run sessions on anything you want at all. We're going to start rolling out those workshops in a box next quarter. So definitely take a look at our schedule of workshops so that you can decide if those are some of the skills that you want to be able to tutor people on. You want to market tutoring services once you decide what you're doing. We do have a marketing workshop on March 14th at 1. If you know about marketing and feel like you're good to go, that's fine. But if you need a little bit of support, ideas, help figuring out how to make a little marketing ad, definitely come on over to that as well. I think those are all the next steps I'm going to give you. And we are 1 minute over, and I understand if you need to go. But just before we leave today, I just want to make sure that you got everything you needed or wanted to out of this session. So did the session cover everything the way you expected? Is there something else you were hoping to learn about today? Please just unmute, raise your hand, whatever.
I do have a question. I had one person come into one of my Excel basic classes, and I guess she did not realize she needed mouse or computer skills or any skills for that. So she kind of withdrew. I helped her and she called and said, thank you. But now she's very hesitant to come back. So how do you get somebody that's, got into a wrong class to get them to come back? Or
I have an idea of an answer, but Luis or Diana, do you have ideas? Or are you both thinking like, gosh, I wish I knew?
I wouldn't know exactly what.
Gosh, I wish I knew.
Okay, so here are my suggestions. See if you can do just a one-on-one with them. There are a bunch of mouse and keyboard practice sites. There's Mousercise. I haven't used these in a while because I've been working more with you all than with students who are struggling, but bring them in, teach them a little bit about a mouse, a little bit about a keyboard, and just put them on those different websites and let them practice. And then
I
say,
did call her. And I
Okay.
did try to let her know about the one-on-one and how to we have math skills but she just now has, I think that just, it was a basic Excel class and I do go to make sure to every single person. So my classes take a little bit longer, but it just like, she got this fear and it's like she shut down. And I don't
Oh,
know,
and
I've
that's-
called her a few times at home and said, look, you don't have to, you want to come to computer basic class, just come in. I will do the one-on-one with you. I have a lot of people that have no skills that are at beginning learning how to use computers. So just let me know what I can do for you. And I mean, that's all I've done, but I don't know how I'll be able to get it back in.
You might not. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's hard for people sometimes to realize maybe they over thought what they were able to do.
Maybe you can promise her a donut.
I actually love that idea, Sarah. Like, hey, come in, we're gonna have coffee and a donut and we're gonna
That's
talk
an
about
idea.
some of the, like, don't make it so much about learning. Make it
Okay.
about, let's just talk about, what do you think I can do for a student in your situation? So ask for her help.
Okay,
And
I like that.
then, yeah, and then also show them the, then start to get them involved. And Maria, you have North Star in your library.
Yes.
So once they start doing some of the mouse and keyboard exercises, suggest, hey, let's just try a little bit in North Star until you're ready to come back to a class. You do all these, you do what you need to make yourself comfortable, and then we'll bring you back into it. Awesome.
I think maybe I'll
Anybody-
try the coffee and the donut thing and bring her in and say, okay, well, since you don't want to come in, maybe you can help me figure out how I can get somebody else that's
And-
just as uncomfortable to come in and, take a class.
Yeah. And you have to, at some point, forgive yourself, or not that you did something wrong, but just sort of be able to let it go, and you did the best you could, and that's all you can do. Yep. And everybody else is like, this was good, gotta go. Do you have other questions, Maria?
No, I think the next thing I am going to do though is when I put out my schedules is make sure that I put on there, because I'm just learning as I'm doing this, that they need to have at least mouse and keyboarding skills to do, because she saw the word basics and that's what kind of, I guess she thought it was really basic. So, and sometimes I don't always think like they do. So I try to learn as I go along. So this was just something that, this is the first time I've ever experienced this. Usually I'm doing, like I said, one-on-ones and group classes, and they do keep coming back. But this is the first time I've really experienced somebody that was just.
And so you've already sort of problem solved a bit, in that you're going to put it on your worksheets, and maybe ask them, reach out to me if you don't even have those. I wouldn't say if you don't have mouse or keyboard skills, reach out to us and we'll help you to get to those first before you can take the sessions.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, give them not just you need this, but if you don't, we can still help you.
Okay, I like that, yeah, because I'm still kind of learning, trying to get, I've actually started, I took the resource list from our social worker that she gave me, for people where they need food or homes and stuff like that. So I started sending out the class schedules to those people, or the groups, so that they would try bringing them in. So I'm getting people in, different areas. So,
Yeah.
but no, that's definitely helpful with that. So.
Fabulous.
And you
Thank
said
you
the
for-
other class is on the March 7th, cycle of instruction.
Hang on one second.
Hold
while
on a sec, yeah.
I have them actually written down in my notes because I don't ever.
We're
remember.
in February now, so what we have,
The cycle of instruction is March 7th at 10 a.m.
yeah,
Okay.
record keeping is February 9th.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I don't know if I signed up for that. I gotta.
We've got a repeat of this on No, sorry, that's already passed. My goodness. No, we're still January. What am
We're
I
still in
saying?
January.
I
I
keep
have such
thinking
a
on
hard time because we
February.
keep talking about the future.
We have
Um,
a repeat of this on the 16th of February.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And then running a workshop is